When you think about buying a home, this is the image that pops into your head. A young, attractive couple beaming with joy, holding up their brand new keys with a beautiful house in the background. But here's the truth: the reality of buying a home is nothing like that picture perfect moment. And worse, it might actually just be one of the biggest financial mistakes you will ever make. In this video, I'm breaking down why buying a home is not an investment and how it could quietly drain your wealth while you think you're building it. Let's dive in. Hi, folks. Welcome back to my channel, The Third Bara, where we talk about investing in stocks on the Trinidad and Tobago Stock Exchange with the sole purpose of gaining financial independence and boosting your wealth. As usual, we are going to just have a brief summary of my portfolio. Currently, my portfolio value stands at 510,403. My total capital return so far is 8,873, and the amount of dividends I've been receiving thus far is $30,090. Based on the calculations, the total return on my portfolio stands at 7.47, which means the annual rate of return is 5.48%. I know this video upload is going to rub people the wrong way because we have all been indoctrinated growing up into believing that real estate equals wealth, whether it's land, whether it is your home, whether it is an apartment block, whether it is a commercial building. We have been taught from young, or maybe it's because of our past colonial history, where the landowners, of course, the rich, wealthy people in our society, whereas the indentured laborers and the slaves, of course, didn't have any money. Right? So maybe that's part of it. But real estate has the average Trinidadian in a chokehold because people think real estate equals wealth, including their home. So the bigger home you have, the more wealthy you are. And that is just not the case. And we need to shake that mentality off. Let's start it now. I know I'm going to upset some of you, but that is the truth. Real estate does not equal wealth. Additionally, the home you are living in does not mean that you're rich. It is not an investment. An investment or an asset, by definition, is something that is growing your wealth. Banks, for accounting purposes, they like to use your house and say that's not a liability, it's an asset. And yes, your net worth, your house, a fully owned house, is part of your net worth. But is it actually giving you tangible money? Your home? No, it is not. And let me tell you why. So you can see this beautiful house we have here. I think this picture came from a house in Tobago, I believe. Very nice. Very chic. Oh, let me fix the picture. This is how we imagine our homes are. That's us. That's you and your wife or you and your husband showing the keys to your fabulous new home. This is what we all think when we are buying a new home. A home is not an investment. It's not an asset that gives money back to you. Why? You are using your home. It's a consumer item, like any other consumer item. You buy shoes to wear, you buy a home to live in. That home you're living in is not gaining you any money. Only if you sell your home, you'll actually get money, and that's based on the appreciation of your home. But if you sell your home, then where are you going to live? So if you guys recall a couple video uploads, I told you that you should budget your money, 75% expenses, 10% savings, 15% goes to investments. Your home qualifies as shelter. Shelter can be either you living free in your parents' house, you are renting, or you bought a home. But you need shelter, and shelter is an expense. So if you buy a home to satisfy the expense of shelter, it is not an asset. It is not gaining you money. And that is something we all need to wrap our minds around. You think I'm wrong? Okay. Let's see. Let's look at where the money goes when you buy a home. Because remember, if it's an asset or if it's an investment, it should be returning you some sort of income, whether in capital appreciation or whether cash flow. Money should be coming back to you. So when you buy a home, let's see where the money goes. So that's you and your significant other showing off your new home. When you buy a home, of course, the money goes to the seller of that home. And intuitively, we all know this. We buy a home, money is transferred from you to the person selling the house. But that is not the only cost. And you will notice a lot of people benefit from you buying a home, but there's no money coming into you. All the arrows are going out. So let's see what happens. The realtor, that's the person who matches you with the seller. We negotiate a price. And of course, the realtor, they get their cut of the sales value of the home. Now, any one of you who bought real estate know you have to pay the lawyers. You will have a lawyer, the seller will have a lawyer. Sometimes a third party will have a lawyer. And all the lawyers get paid. Because with this sale, there's always legal fees involved. Of course, when we go to buy a home, we're not buying that cash. We're going to the bank for a mortgage. We need the bank to loan us money to buy that real estate. So the bank gets a cut. And we will see exactly how much the bank gets when I'm going to use real numbers later on in this video upload. So the bank gains when you buy a home. Don't forget Big Brother, the government. Now it's Kamala Persad-Bissessar. She's saying, hey, no property tax. She's saying that now, guaranteed sometime in the future, you're going to have to pay property tax. But that's not all. In the purchase of the home, you're paying VAT. You're paying all sorts of fees associated with government, that purchase. So the government gets a cut. And when you buy a home, you're not going to sit in that home in darkness. You need lights, you need water, you need internet, you need cable. Those things count as utilities because you can't have a house without any internet. It's 2025. Come on. So the utility companies, they benefit with you having a home. They have a new steady bill, steady income from a new bill because they're going to be billing you. And they will be billing you every month. Now, you just bought a brand new home, so you are not going to let that home fall into struggle vibes. You're going to have to maintain that home. Once that home has a roof, it's going to have a leak. And you need that leak needs to fix. Your home has pipes. And at some point in time, the pipes in the household will leak and you need a plumber to fix it. You need walls to paint. You need bush to cut. The fence might need painting. There's a lot of maintenance costs associated with owning a home, and you'll have to provide. Of course, you need insurance for your home because after you pay all this money to first get a home, and then you pay all this money to furnish that home, you need insurance. You need insurance to cover, let's say, hurricanes, floods, robbery, etc. So you need to have some sort of coverage for the items in your home. So, as you can see, I'm seeing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm seeing 8 streams of income leaving you, but I'm not seeing anything coming in because you are using that home for shelter. That, by definition, it's a consumer item. Your home is not an investment. And in the next bit, I'm going to zoom in on that stream that goes to the bank. And we're going to see exactly how deep this rabbit hole goes. Your home is not an investment. As I stated earlier, the average Trinidadian has 3 options for shelter. 1, you living in your parents' house. And in that case, you're very lucky. You're not paying anything. You're basically living for free. So your shelter is next to nothing. It's basically free. 2, you are renting. And a large majority of us are renting. And we typically move from place to place because we either fall out with the landlord or you don't like the area anymore, but you have the option and the flexibility to move in different locations. Sometimes your job location changes and you have to move. So, maximum flexibility when you're renting. But for some reason, renters and people who are living in their parents' house, they dream. They dream about this third option for shelter, and that's buying a home. From a renter's point of view, they think, well, rent money is dead money. You're wasting money renting. I don't know why people think like that. Rent money is not dead money. And the interesting thing is, I saw this statement or a similar statement in one of our bank's website. So let's have a look. Interesting that on First Citizens Home Ownership Guide, they had an interesting little discussion about renting versus owning. So let's see what they said. They're asking, is renting a bad thing? The true answer to this question is yes and no. Many people may not be in a financial position right now to own their own home, or home ownership might not be a significant concern for them at this point in time. So in this case, no, renting is not a bad thing and may actually be the better option for this person as they may make the necessary preparation to own their own home. I was actually surprised by this statement coming from a bank. I guess that's why I invest in First Citizens Bank. They actually have some corporate responsibility by disseminating the right information. So I actually have no problem with what they're saying here. But let's see where they go with this. The bad thing about renting, though, is that every month you are putting out a significant sum of money that in the long run you will not have anything to show for it. This rent money could actually go towards a mortgage, and at the end of it, you own your own home. So let's stop right there. So, this first statement, let me highlight it. So, this first statement, that is where the fallacy of rent money is dead money comes from. Everyone thinks that. But is that true? Is rent money dead money? Well, if you're thinking that your home is an investment, then yeah, rent money is dead money because you're giving your money to a landlord and you are not getting any equity in the home that you're living in. But why are you paying your landlord that money? What are you getting in return? You are getting shelter because it's not an investment, it's a consumer item. When I go to When I ride a bus, for example, or I pay for a taxi ride, am I getting equity in the car the taxi driver is using? No, I'm paying him so that he can take me from point A to point B. When you're paying rent, you're paying your landlord the service that he's providing, which is a roof over your head, a comfortable spot so that you'll be able to survive comfortably from the first of that month to the end of that month. And then you pay him again so that you can now be comfortable the next month. So you're paying for shelter. You're paying as you go for shelter. And if you get tired of the location, you have the flexibility of moving because some rental agreements go by month, some rental agreements go by the year. But at the end of the day, you're paying for shelter. But let's see what happens in terms of a mortgage and what you're paying for. Because what they said here, what the bank said, I quote, this rent money could actually go towards a mortgage. And at the end of it, at the end of the mortgage, you own your own home. So let's have a look at where the money that you're paying for the mortgage, where exactly does that money go? So as an example, let's check out this home in DB. It is $2 million, which basically is the average price of a home in Trinidad right now. So first, let's have a look at the mortgage calculator that they provided. So typically, you want a mortgage of 30 years. It's $2 million, but the mortgage amount, you're not gonna ask the bank for 2 million. So let's say you ask the bank for 20%. All right, so 20% of 2 million is 1.6. So basically you're paying 400,000 because let's say you saved 400,000. So you're putting down 400,000 and the bank is loaning you the rest to make up 2 million. So financing option less than or equal to 80%. I'm not sure if they mean 80%. This is the mortgage amount, so it'll be 100% financing of this amount. So based on what they're seeing here, your monthly mortgage payment is $10,113. Let me repeat that. For the $2 million home, you'll be paying $10,113. So let's try and see how this money sort of splits up because we all think, I don't know why, but we all think this entire amount of money goes into the value of the home. So it will take 30 years of this value to come up to the $2 million, which isn't the case. If you multiply this by 30, you're going to get way more than 2 million. But let's have a closer look. So here we have an amortization calculator. So I put the 1,600,000 in it, 30 years, and I think that rate looks like 6.5%. So we are close, right? Let's see. Yeah, we are close to the monthly amount. So in the amortization calculator, you put the loan amount, the period, which is 30 years. And by the way, when you're buying a home and you're saying that you're going to pay back the loan, the mortgage on this home in 30 years, that's a very long time to be locked in. 30 years of paying 10,000 a month. That's crazy. You know how much things can happen in 30 years? Let me put that into perspective. 30 years ago, Basdeo Pandey became Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. That happened in 1995. That was before the Atlantic trains were built. 30 years ago was before the whole Y2K issue. It was before the war on terror. Before the financial crisis in the US, 30 years ago is a long time. And of course, most importantly, it was before COVID. So many things can happen in terms of your job, in terms of your ability to maintain an income. So many things that happen. You could get married, you could get divorced. 30 years is a very long time. And some reason these banks have convinced people that the only way to go is to buy a home to improve your wealth. But anyway, I digress there for a moment. So let's see what the amortization calculator shows us. So when you go for a mortgage, the bank gives you this. And then at that point in time, you get the shock of your life because you get this in your final package. All the discussions you were having before, you were sort of focused on the house you're buying and you're focused on that monthly payment. And you're thinking, okay, maybe I'm making 20 something, maybe my wife is making 15. We can more than accommodate this with both our salaries per month, right? But let's see how this sum of money breaks up. So we have, wait, let me not, yeah, let me give the bigger picture. So in year 1, year 2, year 3, you can see how much you're paying in interest and how much you're paying towards the principal, which is towards the actual value of the loan that you are borrowing from the bank. So the first shocker is that banks tend to front load their interest payments. So for the first initial, let's say, yeah, it takes 20 years. 20 years for your principal, for the amount that goes to your principal to be more than the amount that goes to the interest. So for the first 20 years of your mortgage, the majority of the amount that you're paying goes towards the bank in interest. That is crazy. Crazy, crazy. Something else I want to show you. Wait, before I show that, let me show the monthly schedule because maybe that's too high level. So every month, you're paying 10,113. And of that 10,113, only 1,446 goes to the principal. 8,666 goes to the bank in interest. So remember what we said before? You said that rent money is dead money. When you buy a house, you build equity. Well, this is your equity here. And this money you will never see again in life. This column, this is the money going to the bank. So you are an asset to the bank because every month you're giving the bank this. You're giving the bank 8,600. I'm pretty sure if you were renting that house wouldn't even be $8,000. That house might be renting for 4,000 maximum. In DB, maximum 4,000. But you are giving the bank 8,000 and you're saying that buying is not dead money. Renting is. So when the 30 years is over, let's see how much you're paying in total. So after 30 years, you are paying 3,640,000. You borrowed 1.6 million, and after 30 years, you're paying 3.6 million. We have the pie chart here. 44% of what you're paying, 44% of this 3.6 million actually goes to paying back the 1.6. 56%, more than half of what you're paying every month for that full period of time, it goes in interest to the bank. You see the value? The value is 2,040,000 going to the bank. So if that's not dead money, what do we call that? That is crazy. And this is what everyone is setting you up for. They're all setting you up for that 30-year mortgage so that you can give all your money to the bank. Look at it here. 2 million to the bank. You're giving the bank more money than the actual amount that you borrowed. Now tell me something. If you rented that same house, you rent that same house for the 30 years, do you think you'll be paying this amount? Because this is the money that's going to go away. You think you'll be paying that? And then I know some of you will say, yeah, but at the end of this 30-year period, you'll have a house that you can give to your kids or you can sell. But remember what I said. If you're selling the house, what value? I mean, if you're selling the house, where are you going to live? You still need shelter. So you still need to be paying someone else. You might end up paying rent to someone else with the value of the house. So understand something. When you buy a house, that's a consumer product. The more money you have, the more house you can afford. The less money you have, the less money you can afford. It's the same thing with any consumer product. If I have a lot of money, I can buy nice shoes. If I don't have a lot of money, I buy normal or cheap shoes. It's the same thing. Never look at a house that you're going to live in as an investment. It was never an investment. Don't believe the banks when they say it's an investment because you can see the bank, it's all a trap. The bank is trying to get you to give them the majority of the money, more than the value that you're actually borrowing. That's their business. That's why the banks make so much profit every quarter. And we all fall for this trap. It's quite sad, actually. So the question is now, what do you do? What am I really trying to suggest that you do? Of course, the best is to stay in your parents' home as long as possible. When you're growing up, you're in your 20s, you got your new job. If you want your own little space, fine. Build a room, slap on an air conditioned unit in the back of your parents' house, and that's your own little space. But from a financial point of view, once you step out of the comfort of your parents' free home, hopefully they would have paid off for their home, you're now entering the shark infested waters of either renting or buying a new home. So if you rent, that's okay. Don't let anyone shame you're renting, because renting, you're marking time. You rent will fall under the expense for shelter. Make sure your expensive is no more than 75% of your income. You save 10% and you invest in stocks on the Trinidad and Tobago stock market with the other 15%. And when you put away enough savings to have 6 months emergency savings, 6 months of income in your emergency savings account, you take that 10% and you divert it to investments. So now you'll be investing 25% of your income every month in stocks, and you continue renting. You're marking time until you're financially able to really afford to buy a house. Renting, you're flexible, you're able to change jobs, change locations, find a good landlord. You just keep on renting. That's really the best approach for everyone. And you can rent for 20 years. It's not dead money. You're not wasting money renting. I've just showed you the amortization schedule. You're not wasting money renting. But meanwhile, while you're renting, your investments are building up. But if you decide to go in the direction of buying a home, you should follow this rule. This is the 20-33 rule. What is this? 20% down payment. So as in the case of the house in Debe, we are looking to pay down 400,000. You need to park 400,000, build 400,000 in order to put that down payment, because you're not going to mortgage the entire amount of the house. You're going to mortgage 80% of the house. 30. What is this 30? 30 is your monthly uh, payment, your monthly mortgage payment should not be more than 30% of your income, because this 30% will fall under shelter, and shelter goes into that 75%. So out of that 75% of your monthly income and expenses, out of that 75%, 30% is going, maximum is going towards your mortgage. You don't want to go beyond this rule. And now, the most controversial part of this rule, and it's sad, but that's reality. What is this 3? This 3 represents 3 times your annual gross income. That's the amount of house you can afford. Yes, let me repeat that. Multiply your monthly income by 12 and then multiply that by this number, 3. And that is the amount of house that you can afford. So let me do a quick calculation here with my calculator. Let's say you're making a decent income of 15,000 a month. That's decent. Multiply that by 12. So if you're making 15,000 a month, you're making 180,000 a year. Multiply 180,000 by 3, you get 540,000. That's how much house you can afford. Yes, that 3 is not related to what the market has, what's available. Sad, but true. If you try to buy a house that is more than this, and you try to have a mortgage that's more than 30% of your monthly income, you are going to end up house poor. Meaning, the money that you would have saved or invest is going to go into your monthly payments for your house. And that's the position a lot of Trinidadians are in right now. They are basically house poor. And you can see it. When they buy a house, you realize they are not maintaining their house. You've seen the roof, you've seen the fence, you've seen the bushes. They don't have money to pay for maintenance of the house. Notice, I just focused on one aspect. That's how much going to the bank. That's one of 8 streams of income that's leaving. I haven't looked at the other stuff. I ignored it, because in that one stream of income, you can see how much money is leaving you towards the bank in order for you to own a house. So do you really still think that is an investment? I know at this point in time, I know you're saying third Bara is talking nonsense. If we follow his rule, we would never be able to afford a house. But let's have a look at this. Let's say you decide to rent that same house, and let's say I'm going to say that that rental is 5,000. So remember, when you bought the house would have been 10,000. So let's say half. Half of that house is the rental payments. And in DB, 5,000 for a house, that's a lot. Typically, it's like 4,000, 3,500. But let's leave it at 5,000 for that entire house. And let's say because this 400,000 would have been the down payment. So you decide, no, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take that 400,000 and I'm going to invest that 400,000. And the money, the other 5,000 that I'm not paying in mortgage, I'm going to provide monthly contributions of 5,000 to my stocks. And we're going to take the same time period, 30 years. So we're going to rent that same house in DB for 30 years. Yeah. And we're going to use the same annual rate of return of my portfolio, which is 5.48%. So let's see. So we're contributing 5,000 a month. We started with the down payment. We invested this down payment in stocks instead. And let's see how this performs. So fast forward, we decided to rent that house because we're not paying any maintenance, we're not paying any insurance, we're just paying the landlord 5,000 a month. Of course, we are assuming that the rent remains constant throughout that period of time. And as I said, in DB, I think that's going to be 5,000, not more than that. So in 30 years, your portfolio will be 6 million. Let's say 6.3 million. Let's leave it like that. So you're going to have a portfolio at the end of the time period of 6.3 million. So are you really making a bad financial decision if you decide to rent and invest rather than buy? Because if you want to buy and also invest, you have to follow the 20-33 rule. But you said that's too conservative, and that makes you not be able to afford anything. Well, rent and invest. And when you rent and invest, at the end of the period, you can have a portfolio value of 6 million. So the question for you is that really a bad decision to decide to rent? I think not. Hi, folks. So what am I really trying to say? Am I saying that you should not buy a house and you should rent all your life? No, that's not the message I'm trying to give you. The message I'm trying to give you is to release your neck from the chokehold that we have all been told, which is investing in real estate is the way to go. Because if you're buying your house, you are actually just buying shelter. That's it. You're not getting any income when you're buying your home. So you should treat that as a consumer item, as any other consumer item. And how do you treat consumer items? You buy what you can afford. That's it. And how do you know how much house you can afford? You can do the calculation right now. 20-33 rule. Multiply your annual income by 3, and that's the amount of house you can afford. If you think the number is low, then it's clear. You cannot buy a house right now. Then you need to focus on your investments, build your wealth, and then have another look again. Because maybe as you build your wealth, maybe in 10 years, you can then take those stocks, which will have appreciated in value over those 10 years. And maybe at that point in time, you can now sell your stock holdings or part of your stock holdings and purchase 50 and be able to down pay 50% or 75% on a house that you want. The point is, until you're financially able to afford a house, you should not be going anywhere close to trying to buy a house. Do not listen to the banks. You can see they are the biggest benefactor of when you buy a house. So their role is just to convince you that yes, you can buy a house, and they'll actually try to make you buy more house than you can afford. But the key in all of this is investing. You have to invest. Even if you're still in your parents' house, then all that money you're saving by not having to contribute to a rent or to a mortgage, divert that money into investments. If you're renting, look at a similar house that you could have bought that you're renting for, and the difference, throw that money into investments, because now you're just marking time. You're just marking time until you are able to grow your wealth to a sufficient level that you're now able to buy a house. But make no mistake, a house is not an investment. I hope you got value from this video. I know it probably proposed some controversial ideas, but whether you believe me or you can poke holes in my argument, just look around you. Look at the people who own a house. You see the gray hairs. You see the stress they're going through. Because once you commit to that 30 years, you're now also committing to whatever job you're in right now, because you have to maintain an income. Because God forbid, if you lose your source of income, how are you going to pay for that mortgage? Do not buy a house until you are financially able to do so. Okay? Bye for now. See you next time.